Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower clear. Here we go.
But other sightings apparently were taken more seriously.
And one in particular, an incident called the Rendlesham Forest Incident, also known as Britain's Roswell. This was in 1980, shortly after Christmas, when a few American airmen who were stationed in the UK reported seeing a UFO.
A huge, solid, diamond-shaped object they described as 100 foot long, hovering silently in the sky above them.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Understands UFOs are real. This is a technology that is so far beyond anything that we have.
Reportedly appear to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, appear to demonstrate advanced technology.
ARROW is the culmination of decades of DoD, intelligence community, and congressionally directed efforts to successfully resolve UAP encountered first and foremost by U.S. military.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to Disclosure Team. I am your host, Vinny, and this is a pre-recorded interview with Joe Murgia. This interview was recorded on Monday, September 11th. I hope you enjoy it, but first, a quick video from our sponsors. What is up, guys? So I just wanted to take a minute to talk to you about Atlas VPN. If you're anything like me and you like to do a lot of research, there is nothing worse than trying to access a website only to be told this content is not available in your country. Well, this is where Atlas VPN comes in. You can choose from over 1,000 plus high-speed servers and enjoy a fast and stable connection anywhere. Atlas VPN is also big on security, and one thing that really impressed me was their data breach monitor. When it comes to privacy, Atlas VPN doesn't log any of your traffic or activities either. And in your downtime, if you like to watch movies and TV shows but you can't find that show that you want to watch, for example, if you wanted to watch Friends but it just wasn't available on Netflix, then switch to another country, type it in again, and there it is. And with Atlas VPN and Disclosure Team, you can now get 85% off. That is $1.83 a month instead of the original price of $10.99. So click the link in the description and you can benefit from this huge saving and enjoy high-speed, reliable, fast servers wherever you are in the world. Thank you to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. Let's get to the interview. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I really appreciate it. We've got lots to talk about, especially since you were last here. Now, I woke up this morning and I saw a whole bunch of tweets from you, and it seems we had a new David Grusch interview, this one with Jesse Michaels of American Alchemy. So I'd love to sort of jump into that first, and I'm going to start by playing one of the clips that you shared, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Sounds good.
All right.
Why were you placed on the UAPTF? And the UAPTF, for the people that don't know, is Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Task Force.
The UAP Task Force director funneled a request through the Ops Center, like, hey, is there any intel officer for your agency would be willing to be a representative on the task force to kind of fill that void with expertise from NRO and the Air Force. And my boss got the email, he forwarded it to me, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I thought, well, I'm a reservist. like I could put it on my performance report that I worked on like a task force.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be kind of an interesting thing to see what was going on.
When did you start to realize that you weren't just kind of looking at, anomalous phenomena and trying to classify it in the air, but you were being sort of systematically lied to about an internal reverse engineering program within the government?
Yeah, I mean, certainly going into it, I thought it was going to be, air trash, some prosaic natural phenomenon. I remember starting interviewing some military members that saw some really profound stuff, like, large, triangular craft, football field size that they, hovered over them. And I was like, whoa, and these people were very serious, very upset to actually divulge that, a personal thing. It's nothing classified. It was a personal observation they had on a drive to work. Yeah. And then, one thing led to another. I had, certain colleagues of mine that I'd known for years approach me, close the door in my office and was like, look, you need to know about some other stuff you guys are not, getting access to, and, kind of led down this.
Why do you think they talked? Why do you think they spoke to you?
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys were, they've kept the secret for so many years. They knew me. They knew what I was looking into. We reported to the Deputy Secretary of Defense in Congress at the time with the UAP task force. And I think they wanted some change. At least that's what they espoused to me is.
Why do you think they wanted change?
They felt that they were kind of limited in bringing people in, the support they were getting, their treatment was harsh sometimes. And I guess they weren't really feeling the love anymore.
What's the first moment where you saw irrefutable evidence that what you're dealing with is truth, is reality?
I mean, there were certain military cases, we were analyzing that I just really couldn't explain in a prosaic fashion.
What can you tell me about these craft? Why do you know it's exotic?
Based on the very specific properties that I was briefed on, isotopic ratios that would have to be engineered for it to be at those levels. And then, of course, read some, intel reports that were provided to me in that regard. And, I took that and I went to the agencies that, wrote those reports and asked for access. And when they deny you access, then it's a thing. Yeah. So it's and that's what happened to me time after time over a couple of years.
So there wasn't a singular moment where you're like, just open the folder and you go, what the fuck is that?
It was kind of like a slow burn culmination as I was processing it, allowing my worldview to open. And yeah, I don't know if there was a singular moment. I think it was, some of the really, really trusted high level people we talked to when they, stared us straight in the face very seriously and, confirmed a lot of this information. And the quality of people we talk to, if they ever go public, it'll blow your mind who we talk to. I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm talking to X, who's a really important person, and they're confirming these certain details, and they're saying like, we need to protect this at all costs, and they're giving me kind of the whole speech about it. And I'm sitting there, it's like an out-of-body experience. I'm like, okay, well, this is a thing.
Who is X? I want to know who X is.
Absolutely, man. What did you pull out of that little clip there that really stood out?
For me, it's those people who we spoke to who would blow our minds. Who would blow our minds? I don't know how high up it would have to be to blow my mind. I mean, we've heard of, I think it was former DNI James Clapper had interest in this. Lou Elizondo mentioned him. I don't know, but somebody like, oh yeah, we met with President Obama. That would blow my mind if he knew about the crash retrieval program. And so, but I know a lot of people are like, this is the same stuff over and over again. So-and-so told me this, and we don't know who it is. I think your judgment, my judgment, the judgment of most people in this community, we believe what Grusch is saying. I mean, we really want to see it for ourselves because that unless we do, there's no proof, obviously, and it's not firsthand. We need to hear from the firsthand witnesses. But if there really are people that were that high up in the food chain, that in the government that Rubio mentioned, he's like, there's really no reason you could think of why they would lie. They're either crazy or they're telling the truth. I don't think all of those people are crazy. They said they spoke to 40 people over a 4-year period. I would like to know who's on Grusch's team. I love that Jesse Michaels obviously had a lot of time. seemed like over a several day period. So
yeah,
they got to ask questions with a lot more detail that we had never heard before. And I want every little detail, even if details are not important, like, oh, that's not an important detail, but it's something we don't have. And it's really good to judge every aspect of his story. Early on, also, he says the head of the UAP task force was, looking for somebody. That's Jay Stratton. And from what I learned, Stratton found the program. So then he found somebody like Grusch to go look, and then Grusch found the program. So it was confirmation. I don't know how far Stratton got. I don't know if Stratton got access. I'm thinking not, but I don't know that. So it was a surprising interview. I didn't know that an interview was in the works. Jeremy Corbell had said, well, he's being muzzled right now, Grusch, but the muzzle is about to come off. So obviously Jeremy knew this was going on. Some insight, some behind the scenes shots at the hearing. So yeah, it was good. And I think those guys asked good questions, and I'm going to watch it again because I haven't soaked it all in, but it was a good day for us. I thought last night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's important that it kind of shows that he, even though these questions are being asked, he's still hitting that line where he can't go any further and he's not willing to kind of get into trouble for it. But it does kind of give you more to kind of digest. And I would recommend anybody go out there and watch it more than once because there's a lot to take in. And it's great that they got to talk to him. And it does seem that there's another documentary, I think, dropping on September 24th from Amar, who was in that video with Jesse and his channel, Yes Theory. So I look forward to that as well.
See, I didn't know that. So September 24th, which one is he, Amar?
So he was the other guy asking questions a couple of times with the baseball cap on. Yeah, his channel's huge, millions of subscribers. So they're always putting out high quality content. So I look forward to that for sure.
What I didn't realize is that group is the same group. I watched their video about the what's the Northeast abduction case that was on Unsolved Mystery.
Oh, the Tom Reed, yeah, in the Berkshire.
So yeah, they actually did a long form segment with him and some of the witnesses. So yeah, I didn't realize it was the same group. Really good stuff.
Yeah, it's high quality, so that should be interesting. But let me just cue up the next clip here.
I don't report to anybody, and there is no plan. Yeah. I'm not a part of some slow drip disclosure or anything. If there is a plan, I'm totally unwitting, and holy shit, they've controlled me in a very passive manner that is masterclass.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not a part of some weird shit,
Did you ever at any point try to suss out whether you were being lied to? Because all of these people
100%.
are coming from the same programs. And so presumably there's some level of coordination between them. So how do you kind of get through and just make sure that they're not, meeting in some back room saying, you say this to Dave, I'll say this to Dave,
Yeah, no, for sure. So I thought maybe it was a joke or something. Maybe it was a psyop on me or something. I don't even know. And then, but the, near 40 people we talked to, a lot of the guys, I've known my entire career, and they wouldn't lie to me. I have a friendship with them. And for them to, disclose to me that kind of stuff and it ended up being a false, would have totally torpedoed the friendship. And I also went out of my way to find people who don't know each other either. And I had other very higher ranking colleagues of mine go talk to other people that I didn't even personally talk to. That group, of course, we took all that, and I'm all the people who conducted those interviews, I made them get interviewed by the Inspector General because we're crossing our T's here because this shit is crazy. Yeah. And you can never be perfect, but man, I was so freaking careful to make sure I wasn't getting fed some bullshit. If they were in coordination together on a disinfo campaign, holy fuck, I shouldn't even be an intel officer because I should have, sniffed that shit out. So,
in the last couple of years, have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally.
There's a Chris Mellon story where he's supposed to meet with somebody on the program and he has the meeting all set up. And 2 weeks before the meeting, he says that the guy just randomly has a heart attack.
We were about 2 weeks away from meeting when he died, when he had a heart attack.
What was the last special access program that leaked? They don't generally leak.
People are oh, dude, wouldn't it be broadly leaked or whatever? I'm as somebody who is super cleared to a lot of that conventional stuff over the years, stuff never leaks.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out. There are plenty of things that are pretty serious, they're broad, that have never seen the light of day.
Of course, like, you're gonna tell someone that their entire life and their family and their kids, like, everything is in danger. It doesn't feel too far-fetched that someone will keep a secret if it threatens their life.
Like, look, dude, you're not getting promoted.
Yeah.
You're going to lose your job. You know, the psychology of the typical career government worker, right? Stable paycheck, pension, maintain clearance. So if any of that's threatened, you know, they're going to capitulate in most cases, right? The threatening nature of some of their indoctrinations where they're like, this is treason, you're going to Leavenworth if you ever tell anybody not in the program. And oh, by the way, what's the penalty for treason? Oh, right, execution, right? And I was like, well, fuck it. I'll be the mouthpiece for you. I'll be the leader, I guess, and I will shepherd you privately to the appropriate people that could be a recipient of your disclosure. You don't have to go public, but I'll do the thing.
You know, a lot of people, they don't say, well, they're either crazy or he's either crazy or telling the truth. No, what they say is, we believe he's telling the truth, but then he was lied to. And he's like, well, these people I've known my whole career, they wouldn't lie to me. And I know the skeptic would say, that's a naive thought. Of course, this is the biggest story in the history of mankind. If there's something going on behind the scenes, they would have to lie to you. But do I think all those people lied to him? No, but we need one of those folks to come forward, and then another one, and then eventually I think the lie theory will go away. But not until we actually see the craft will we know for sure. And, you know, he said, just like Admiral Wilson was told, listen, he was turned down in 1997. He allegedly got to the crash retrieval program, and they said, sorry, we're not letting you in. So he complained, and his higher up said, if you don't drop it, you're going to lose a star. You're not going to get your promotion to DIA, head of DIA, and you're going to get early retirement. So yeah, it's similar to what Grusch said. They're going to use that against you. You're not going to have a career. And I was not joking, but earlier today I said we need to start a GoFundMe for the first-hand whistleblower to come forward, because if they are threatened with their job, we could say, look, we raised $1 million for you. Here you go. You don't have to worry about working. You don't have to go work at McDonald's or whatever other jobs to make ends meet. So yeah, I mean, it's good once again to get more details from him. And I don't understand, Vinny. I still think there are a lot of people, not a lot, but there's a segment out there who they just, and especially the media, the articles that have come out, they're so skeptical of him. I'm like, do you listen to Rubio? Did you listen to the people, what the Congress folks are saying? So the IG, Marek von Ronnekamp, has done a great job saying you don't get to the Congress unless you're going through the IG first, and they deemed it credible and urgent. So I know we're stuck right now. It's just Grusch, but it's still nice to hear more from him.
Yeah, it is. I think what was interesting is that, you know, yes, he believes his colleagues who he's formed good friendships with, and you mentioned there that people would think he's naive, but then he also did say that, you know, he had other people speak to witnesses over here and kind of kept things separate to a degree as well. So it wasn't just one group who could have easily just sat and planned this whole kind of lie. And you know, and then, you know, he said he sent a lot of them to the ICIG to be interviewed. And I mean, surely one of them would slip up somewhere with all of that going on. I mean, that seems almost, you know, more unbelievable than actually what they're talking about. So
that's what he said. He said the same thing. It's harder to believe that there's some sort of psyop going behind the scenes with over 40 people than believe there actually is a crash retrieval program. The one detail he said, we sent the people who conducted the interviews to the IG. So that to me sounds like the people he was working with who interviewed the firsthand witnesses. So did the firsthand witnesses make it to the IG? I don't know for sure. When I hear him say that, I know other people have said yes. I would just like to know all the I want to know everything. I want to know who these people are. You know, who are the folks that came to him? Who are the folks who showed him reports? He went to certain agencies. Which agencies? Hopefully we get those details one day, because it'll help fill in so many of the blanks that we have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we whether it's a first-hand witness, or I'd just like to know the documents that he provided to Congress and to the ICIG, any photos or kind of media within there that showed some of these things that, you know, he seemed to think are definitely not of this earth, you know, that kind of stuff. And then you do hear all these rumors of people. James Fox says he's spoken to first-hand witnesses and recorded it on video. I mean, that's interesting, but again, it's just, you know, trust me, bro, kind of stuff. And
yeah, and we both like James. And I saw the interview, a little interview where he said, you know, in a couple of weeks I'll know more. So let's hear. So I understand some skepticism. I do not understand the shots that Grusch is taking. I don't, but I guess we'll keep getting that until we get one firsthand witness will really, really add a lot to this story.
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. I think I've got another clip here. Let me just cue this one up. Right.
3 men who previously served in the military are set to speak publicly about what they saw in the sky and heard behind closed doors.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Can we just talk?
Yeah.
So what happened yesterday? I didn't read the news. Certain presidents don't have a need to know on this topic.
Unless you have to stroke a pen to sign like an executive order or something, well, why would you have a need to know? The guys that were involved in Manhattan were overlaying the same ecosystem of secrecy to protect stuff that they were protecting our nuclear secrets.
Why aren't they releasing the Kennedy files? Nobody's alive 60 years, but every president.
If something is not a nuke, but it has radiological energy coming off it, you know, alpha, beta decay, whatever.
Same secrecy.
Same secrecy.
What is the connection with nuclear? Is it the kind of benevolent protector theory?
Manhattan Project, they were kind of the first blue book.
Do you think Bob Lazar is full of shit? Have we made any agreements with any of the aliens? Do you have a sense of, you know, the species?
This is like the mega interview. We're covering every potential trippy / conspiratorial thing out at once.
I really love when he was asked about the nuclear angle and he said, it could be they're trying to let us know not to deal with this. It's dangerous. He went through all of the possibilities. It's like, we have no way of knowing why they encounter our nuclear missiles. There are people out there who say, I firmly believe it looks just like I think it is. They're trying to tell us. I think James Fox says, don't play with matches. You know, they're warning us, but we don't know that. I mean, it could be so many possible things. It could be, I know that's one end. On the complete other end, you have Reverend Ray Boucher, who says they're demonic and they're doing that because they want to make us think that they're extraterrestrial and throw us off the trail. And he's not the only one who has said they're trying to trick us into thinking they're extraterrestrial. So I love that he's open to all of those possibilities and admitted we don't know. We can't think like a non-human intelligence if it's non-human and not us from the future. We can't think like them. We're speculating on all of this. So I really like that part of it. And he did it. He did that in a few examples where he's like, it's non-human. I'm speculating. This is a theory. So yeah, he was pretty clear like that. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. And what did you think to that comment about the Manhattan Project and Project Blue Book? Kind of almost points to that there was a side part of the Manhattan Project.
Yeah, which I had never heard before. And I think they mentioned in the doc that Valet had mentioned that, which I forgot if I did see it, right. Which is really interesting. And he also mentioned Vannevar Bush, and he mentioned Robert Sarbacher, who's a name that comes up a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Along with Wilbert Smith out of Canada, which he did not mention. So yeah, he's talking a lot of more details and names, his opinions that are coming out. So if it turns out they kind of had another side of the Manhattan Project related to UFOs, that would be really that'd be cool. I mean, it would be a really cool story, you know. And I would hope the mainstream media will one day pick up on this, because they still have not, for the most part, covered Grusch, which is amazing to me, except to take shots at him and the whole story. So I know I always preach people need to have patience, but I understand people getting frustrated because it's quote unquote slow. It's not really slow for me because I've been at it for a long time. So I don't really consider what's going on right now slow.
Sure.
But for somebody who's brand new to this, they're like, where are the witnesses? Come on, let's go. And then we have Danny Sheehan saying 2028.
Yeah. Let's talk about Sheehan. Actually, just before we do, I'd just say to anybody, if you haven't watched that full interview with David Grusch, just go and watch it. There's a lot of little bits you can pull apart, and it keeps the conversation going, and that's what we just did. So, yeah, make your own minds up, I guess. But yeah, let's talk about Danny Sheehan, because he says to expect hardcore UFO information, that it's going to be addressed in the years 2028 to 2031. And I'm not good with these future dates and years when it comes to this subject. What do you think?
He said he's going to go to Washington, and he had, I forget what's his assistant's name, the guy he was going to go with.
I know the guy you mean. I cannot think of it.
He looks like an older version of Stephen Greer, like a Grandpa Greer. And anyway, they're going to go there, and they're allegedly going to be in charge of helping to suggest the names of the people who are going to be on the panel to help with the Schumer rounds amendment, where they're going to recommend 9 people who are going to decide whether or not something stays classified or not. The UAP Disclosure Project, I forget the exact wording. So Sheehan and his assistant are going to recommend names for that panel of 9. I ran that by somebody privately. They gave me one word response saying BS. They go, that's going to come from Biden's science advisor. So we'll see. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they reached out to people in the UFO community like Sheehan to, what do you think? Give us some names. Whether or not they actually listen to him, I don't know. Hopefully we get some people who are actually familiar with the subject, and we don't get anybody who's like anti-UFO, because that would be, if you start seeing names that are anti-UFO and we know from their past comments, then I'll start getting worried. But it's early, if that Schumer amendment makes it into the NDAA, we'll know by the end of the year. Hopefully, some people don't think it will make it, but if it does, it's amazing. And there's so much good stuff in there that came out of left field. And I know Schumer was friends with Harry Reid, and that probably played a role. So we'll see what happens. And I think that they have until I don't know the actual dates, 180 days when they start picking the members of the panel, and then Biden has to, I think Biden appoints them, and then it gets in front of the Senate, kind of like a Supreme Court justice hearing. So hopefully that'll be covered too on TV. That'll be some good watching. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. And am I right in saying that these 9 members of this Disclosure Act panel are civilians that they're going to be picking? They're not current or necessarily former government contractors or DOD personnel.
I mean, it's not exactly clear. They say they shouldn't be connected to, I don't know the exact wording, but legacy programs. And then some people are like, well, they can't have been connected to any UFO program. I don't know if that's the case. Like, say they wanted to put in, just for an example, Eric Davis worked as a consultant. Can we bring him in? Or does that count as, somebody we don't want who actually worked in the government? I'm not sure. But if it's, it may be all civilians. And I mean, I have ideas of people. I think Richard Dolan would be a great person if you want somebody with a history, especially a historian. He's perfect.
Yeah.
His name should be in there. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Eric Davis there, and, a lot of what he said, 5-6 years ago. Do you think that we're seeing a lot of similar things happening now, that it really adds weight to what Eric Davis was saying?
It does. In 2018, he gave several interviews where he's talking about the crash retrieval program. He's talking about the UFO knots. And I always wondered, how is he able to say that if that's classified? And now I'm thinking maybe he went to DOPSR before he did those interviews and said, hey, I'm going to be doing these interviews. Can I speak about this, this, and this? He may not have done that, but I'm speculating.
Sure.
Or he just, was frustrated and said, screw it, I'm going to say this information. It's old information. And if they have a problem with it, they could take it up with me. Yeah. So yeah, he was in recent times, he was one of the first people saying similar things to what Grusch has said. And then we had the Wilson Davis notes, which if anybody doubts whether or not that really happened at this point, I don't know what to tell them. I mean, that was, and Wilson wasn't the first one to find the program. I don't know the date, but it was General John Sheehan. It was when an audit had taken place, and I forget the guy's name, Charles Boucher, and I may be butchering that, found the program, and then Sheehan was allowed in, and he touched the craft. It was either in the late 70s or early 80s. And then as far as we know, the next person who found it was Wilson, and then Stratton, and then Grusch, and then Eric Davis also, too. Somewhere in there, Eric Davis. And Eric Davis said he spoke to a lot of people over the years. So I don't know how far Eric Davis got and whether or not he ever got access. Maybe, hopefully he has access now, but I do not know that. I don't. And if he did, he wouldn't be able to tell me.
Have you spoken to Eric recently at all?
I communicate with him, but he's so busy. It's like his messages to me are filled with typos. And if you know Eric, he doesn't make typos. He's so busy. It's like, can't talk, blah, 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 bun. So yeah. I hope we hear from him at a hearing. I would love to. He would be amazing.
For sure. If anyone's going to be subpoenaed to really break this open, I think he'd be up there for sure. Let's move on and talk about Arrow. It's moved out of OUSDI. It's under the DepSecDef. And we also got the website. Like, I think she kind of pushed that along, Kathleen Hicks. So any thoughts on that? I mean, sorry, before you answer, one thing I've picked up on from Grusch and everything is that the UAP task force actually seemed to be making really good progress behind the scenes. And, that all stopped. And then we had AIMSOG briefly, now Arrow. It almost seems like these government offices have almost taken 5 steps back.
Yeah, it would have been perfect if Jay Stratton had stayed in charge of the UAP task force. And there are people like, well, when he was pulled off of it, that was really suspicious. But he's like, I was just supposed to go back to my normal job. I had a time limit and it really wasn't anything suspicious. But He was upset that they pulled, they basically did away with the UAP task force. And he's like, we had made so much progress. And now we're going on to these other programs and kind of starting from scratch. The website is finally up. It's got some interesting things on there talking about Tiny Klaus on Twitter pointed it out. They talk about how the UAP object recovery and advises commands on the secure and safe handling, storage, transport, and transfer of UAP objects and material for aero science and technology exploitation. So that's on there. The videos are the same videos we've seen. Some of them are commuter planes. Why they're even on there, I don't know. They said they won't put any videos on there that are, unless the video is, I forget the word they use, if it's resolved. So if the video is resolved, then it will make it on there. But they have the metallic orb on there. And as far as I know, that's not resolved. It's unknown. He said, we don't think we're going to get more data. So maybe that's why it's on there. Kirkpatrick, I still don't know. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt as much as can. Was he pulled aside? Was he said, listen, if you start talking about what you've been told about these locations, you're done. You're going to never work in this field again. Has that happened? That's the best case scenario. Worst case is he agrees with all of the people who want to keep this quiet, because he said during his ABC interview, he was asked, have you seen anything convention about intact spacecraft? He's like, no, I've seen nothing that leads me to that conclusion. And he's like, he said, I've been, I don't know the exact wording. I don't have it here, but it sounds like he has all the access he needs, allegedly. But he has never been asked by that ABC reporter, and nobody else has been able to interview him. He hasn't been asked, have you been given the names of these programs? Have you or anybody you worked with been told exactly where to look? Have you actually gone to these places? If he's asked those questions, his answers are going to be enlightening. Because if he hasn't gone because he wants plausible deniability, if he doesn't go, then he can say, yeah, I don't know about those programs. Specifically ask him, but I don't think they're going to make him available to the media. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the ABC interviewer, Devin Dwyer, maybe he did ask him and it got pulled. I don't know. So, and you get conspiratorial. Maybe they said, yeah, come on in, Devin. You can't ask these questions. Would an ABC reporter agree to an interview that had limitations? I don't know,
And it's interesting that when he sat in front of Gillibrand earlier in the year, I think it was April, correct me if I'm wrong, then, he was operating under Title 10 authorities. Did he get Title 50 authorities and get that information? Or was he just being fed information from Moultrie, for example? Right. That's where I'm confused, and we just don't know. So if it was coming from Moultrie, maybe Moultrie was only giving him certain pieces of information to lead him down, in a certain direction and control him almost. Again, really speculative, but these are the kind of things that keep popping up in my head because we just don't know.
And you can ask him about Title 50. If give a press conference, they're really careful. I'll be very surprised if he does give a press conference where it's open to anybody to ask any questions. Although he did have that, there was a press conference early on. Remember I don't know when it was. Was it last year? And I know there were folks in the UFO community that were able to ask questions. John Greenwald, Chris Sharp, they were there. Do you remember that event?
I do. I think, I remember
But I
Chris
think you had to
and
submit
John,
your questions, I
That's
think.
right.
And then
Something like that. It was very controlled.
It was controlled. It'll probably be that way. Yeah, I don't see him no holds barred interview anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about this clip that's been flying around for years that keeps popping up. Is Robert Bigelow on 60 Minutes Australia saying that these beings are walking among us. And this week we had him sit down and kind of try and sort of clear up that statement. So do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, he said that they walk among us, and then he cleared it up and said, no, that's not what I didn't mean that. I just meant, and I think the question was, you said that they were right under our noses. That's what Jeffrey Mishlove asked him about. And he said, yeah, I meant that the evidence is so overwhelming over the decades and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people have seen them. It's pretty obvious unless you're close-minded and don't want to discuss this. And then Laura Logan from 60 Minutes, she asked him the question. He's like, yeah, I expected a follow-up, and she never asked it. Meanwhile, she's talking about aliens being a psyop. She's gone down the big-time conspiracy rabbit hole. Sorry, and she was I thought she was a great 60 Minutes reporter. But if you look at her Twitter right now, she's a lot of focus is on conspiracy and extreme right-wing stuff. But yeah. So Bigelow said, no, I wasn't talking about walking among us, although there are other researchers who believe that for their own reasons. But there are people now saying, nope, Bigelow is just backtracking. I don't believe it. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible that he doesn't want to scare people. But, I mean, he talked on 60 Minutes. So if he really meant that, I think he would say it. So he's giving more interviews, which is nice to see, And his interest or my interest, life after death and all that stuff, Skinwalker Ranch. So, yeah. Lots of stuff going on besides just Grusch.
Yeah, that's true. But do you think, with Bigelow, again, it's a speculative question, but do you think Bigelow could know a lot more about everything? Yeah.
Yeah. How far was he read in? People have speculated he was a program manager, maybe for a crash retrieval program. I don't know that, but yeah, he could. It's obviously speculative. He has said things in the past that he was shown certain things. So I don't know what it would take clearance-wise for him to be shown that, and he's hinted at it in his interviews with George Knapp. He's the one thing, and I know he did an interview yesterday. I haven't watched it yet, but from what I heard, he wasn't asked about the OSAP data. We paid, American taxpayers, we paid for that data, 2008 to 2010. 13 years later, and we don't have it. Yeah. He could release it. He could scrub all of the personal details and release that data. I don't think he's going to. He never did it with Skinwalker Ranch and his own private NIDS data. So why is he going to do this? And it does frustrate me and other people too. And he said he had material that was anomalous. I think it was biologic material. They probably won't release that either. So, and I know there are people behind the scenes who are frustrated with him. And what are you going to do? You can't force it,
Yeah.
But I wish he would be asked about it specifically. Will you release the OSAP data? Yes or no? And why not if not?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, one thing that I always see continuously is the conversation that, certain people think that all we're seeing is human tech. And then other people are convinced it's, non-human intelligence that have created these objects. And this is the conversation I know you've had with Michael Vai, is it? Am I getting that right? Yeah. What do you think about that? What would you say to someone who just thinks this is human tech, all of it?
No, he doesn't think it's human tech.
He thinks it's he thinks it's a mix. But to anyone who is like, no, this is just human tech.
It's hard because if the sightings, and I use this example, Kit Green told me when I interviewed him in 2019, which I have not put out that interview, so people don't go look for it. He said his parents in the early 30s had a sighting of a classic flying saucer in Wisconsin at a lake with multiple witnesses, and it came out of the lake. And it's like, is that human tech in the early 30s? And I know the skeptic would be, well, Kit Green was trying to feed you information to throw you off the trail because, in the 30s, that would not be human tech. And I remember asking him, E.T.? He's like, I don't think it's E.T. So I think he was more in the interdimensional range. He didn't say that, but that's where I thought he was going. Michael Vai thinks his sighting in the Gulf, the Persian Gulf in 93, I think it was. I could be wrong on the date. Was our tech. You have Nick Cook, who was the editor of Jane's Defense Weekly. He was the aviation editor. He's like, I can't prove it. I don't have the evidence, but my gut tells me we may have cracked gravity. Richard Dolan thinks that. There are other people. Will Miller had a guy who worked at Area 51, and on his last day told Will, you know those craft that make 90-degree turns and they're going Mach 30? You think they're extraterrestrial? Well, they're not. And the guy walked away. So it's like, I don't know. And there are people who are convinced that we do not have those craft, and other people are convinced that we do. So, and people get mad from both sides if I mention, I think we might have that. They're like, you're saying that all of this is black tech? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm saying some of it maybe. And then you have derivative technologies, which is not exactly reverse engineering, but you're getting certain aspects of the technology gleaned from that text. That may be the limit of how far we've gone. Will Miller thinks we have a craft that can go anywhere, anytime in the universe. So I don't know. It's really confusing. I just think if we have cracked gravity and we have that tech, it would be more classified than the non-human stuff, because it's, you know, it's technology. It's if our adversaries got a hold of it, it's a huge deal.
Yeah, and then that leads you to think, you know, would we have used it by now? Has there been anything that kind of leads us down that sort of thought process?
Yeah, and Michael Vai always says, he goes, no, you don't use it unless you actually absolutely have no other choice to use it, which Grusch said in that interview with Jesse. He goes, it's your ace in the hole unless you have to use it. And other people are like, no, I don't agree with that. But they both, I think, I'm not sure if Grusch said it, but Vai said it's actually Vai and Nick Cook said, I think I was reading Nick Cook today, it's something that would change the economy. It would, it's such a destabilizing thing. If it's free energy, it could change so many things on a global scale that we may not be able to handle the changes. It could be something that you don't want terrorists to get their hands on. It could be turned into a weapon. So yeah, you don't break it out unless you absolutely have to break it out. That's the idea. There are people who disagree with that, and I don't know if we have it. You know, Tom DeLonge's written about it in the fiction books that we have some of this stuff. I don't know. I mean, there are people who are so sure we don't have it. I'm like, how could you be so sure? I'm not sure either way. I don't know. I really don't. And I know that that's like a lame answer for me to say, I don't know, but that's like 90% of the stuff in this field is, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know what we're dealing with.
No, I agree. I think that's okay, because we're speculating, we're having the conversation. I think, you know, that's all we can do a lot of the time. So, you know, it's worse if we were saying it is this, it is, you know, it is that, when we just don't know. So
yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. People say this is what it is. I'm like, okay, I don't know that. I'm sorry.
I mean, one of the things that's always been brought up as well is that, you know, a lot of the secrecy originated from, you know, really deep Christian people who just didn't want this out because they think it, you know, is demonic. And where do you think this fits in now with it when it comes to, you know, UFOs and religion? And do you see a connection there?
It's funny because there's I don't know if it's a post on Facebook or he said it I think he said it in an interview. Eric Davis said the crash retrieval program was buried to keep it away from those morons, meaning he doesn't mince his words, meaning the extreme religious folks. That's what he said. I don't know. I have never heard anybody else say that. As far as it going on now, when I met Grusch last August, when I just went to see Corbell and Knapp speak, and there was this guy, Dave, I realized he knew a lot of stuff. So I asked him, I said, what about the groups that want to keep this quiet? And he went down the list of groups he thought wanted to keep it quiet. And among them were evangelical Christians. And he's like, well, we know who those folks are. It was almost like he was kind of like, yeah, they're there, but they're not really a problem. And then you have the groups that have the tech and they don't want to share it. Then you have other people who think it would change the world and upset the apple cart in such a big way that we should never make it public. I spoke to somebody who was part of the senior review group who Admiral Wilson actually tried to get permission to get access, and they denied it. I was given his phone number. I wrote about it in my Wilson Davis blog, and I called him blindly. And basically he said, why would you want to make this information public? You're going to upset religion. You're going to ruin so many things on this world. Why? And there are people who think like that. And I'm like, well, I think we need to. I don't know if I pushed back against him. I just took it in. But obviously, we want to know, and we think it's important to know where we stand in the universe. Where Lou Elizondo says our place in the universe, he learned, it's like not what we've been taught, not what you've been taught on Sunday school. What does that mean? For me, and I think I think we can handle most of what the possibilities are. For the masses, not so much, because Lou says, I disagree with when Lou says disclosure has happened. I'm like, I don't think so. He goes, disclosure has happened. The world didn't end. People didn't panic. And I'm like, the people I talk to do not believe disclosure has happened. They don't pay attention. If there's something in their face that shows them something non-human is here and it's using us as a crop, farming us, I don't think it's going to just be like, that's cool.
No, I agree completely. Yeah, I think maybe, maybe disclosure, the process has started. Maybe right. I can kind of get with that. But yes, certainly we need, that ultimate confirmation of, NHI, and then we can start asking the real big questions. I mean, where do you think things are going when it comes to the congressional hearings and things? We had the House Oversight Committee subcommittee hearing, and Burchett and Luna and everyone were really on top of this. And then I was starting to hear rumors of the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Intel committees maybe holding something in September, but we've just not heard anything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, let's see what happens. They just got back into session. Matt Laszlo, who's been doing a great job, asked a poll, speaking to various members of Congress specifically about UFOs. And, Kirsten Gillibrand said that they were planning hearings. So she needs to be asked, are you still planning hearings? Because if we don't get hearings this year, I think we're going to lose a lot of steam. Hearings or a firsthand whistleblower coming forward. I suspect we're going to have discussion of hearings, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I know you hear Representative Turner from Ohio talking, negatively about this, and supposedly he said that another hearing would be embarrassing to us and to the DOD, and supposedly the source was in Burchett's office, one of the staffers, but they spoke out and said it didn't come from us, so that's not accurate. So I don't know what to believe on that, but I have no doubt he's negative, Congressman Turner. But whether or not he can stop like you said, the Senate Armed Services Committee, Intelligence Committee from having a hearing, I don't know. And in the end, again, I don't know if we're going to have hearings, but let's see. That's another thing that bothered me. Gillibrand was speaking in front of a group of it was seniors, so I'll give her that. But she was kind of like talking about Grusch and laughing. She's like laughing. He's like, yeah, this is what he's talking about. So maybe she was trying not to scare them, but it was a little disappointing. She needs to be asked again, and her and Rubio, they just need to be continuously asked. It would be nice if it was not just Matt Laszlo, nothing against him, but a Washington Post reporter, a 60 Minutes correspondent, the New York Times reporter, besides Julian Barnes, who writes a lot of negative stuff on this subject. So, yeah, I mean, until the legacy media really digs in, I think things are going to go a little slow.
Yeah,
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you on that completely. I mean, what is there any way that we can progress this subject just by completely taking our focus away from the government aspect of this completely? And, is there anywhere we can turn to sort of make some kind of progress, or at least learn more about it, whether it be, I don't know, civilian witnesses or anything like that? Or have we just got to kind of play this waiting game?
I think the only thing that will have enough punch is multiple witnesses who are firsthand witnesses coming forward, and legacy media. We need the legacy media in a big way. We really do, because people watch that. 60 Minutes did such an amazing job, and it had such an effect on people, because when I go out and the New York Times articles, when I go out, I refer to that. I refer to, back then I would say, the New York Times article. Have you heard about it? And these are people just I would meet on the street. Or 60 Minutes, or the congressional hearings. We need we need a lot of congressional hearings. I mean, during the Iran-Contra hearings back in I think it was the 80s, there was like a lot of hearings. We've had one. Well, we had the other one, which was a little lame, but so we've had 2 hearings, and we had the Kirkpatrick briefing. So I don't see anything civilian unless a civilian has evidence that's overwhelming. We don't have overwhelming evidence right now of anything. I mean, I like Gimbal, I like Tic Tac, I like Go Fast, but those aren't overwhelming. I show them to people who are like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like the sound, I like the pilots, but you know, we don't have the 90-degree turn. We don't have it making those turns and taking off like a bat out of hell. So supposedly that exists, and we still don't have it. So yeah, I think people get they get on my case. They go like, why do you think the government is going to do it? We have to take it into our own hands. That's fine, but I don't understand what we can do. I don't get it. If they have the best data, if that's why certain areas are hot with UFO sightings, because it's because there's a sensor bias. That's where the sensors are that pick them up.
Yeah.
Our home videos, they suck, Vinny.
You
see, like, check out my video from last night. I'm like, it's a light in the sky. I can't do anything with that. I can't show that to anybody, you know?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that is the case. I mean, we are crying out, and we said earlier on that we want more whistleblowers. And we recently, Martin Willis put out an interview with Jonathan Weigand, an alleged crash retrieval witness, which you know, I just never know how to take these things. You know, we had Greer in his kind of mini hearing conference thing where he, you know, had some whistleblower stand up who said that they'd seen craft and that, and I just struggle with it. And what are your thoughts?
I struggle with it too. I struggled with it too. I struggled with Jonathan Weigand. Seems credible. And then the other witnesses that Greer brought forward, which I need to listen to again. I mean, they sound like they're telling the truth. That doesn't mean they are. And they're really going over into black technology and then talking about, what were they talking about? Human trafficking connected to drugs and the black technology. I'm like, okay, but and I know if that's really going on, you're going to have a problem getting people to come forward and talk about that. So it's like, I'm in the dark like everybody else. I'm not like Stephen Greer, where he's 100% sure this is going on and the black technology. And he has, I don't know how many witnesses he talks about. He has a lot, but we've only heard from a couple of them. So Jonathan Weigand, I know social media wise, he's controversial. He's, you know, they talked about certain witnesses. I don't know who it was. Was it Burchett or was it Comer saying some of the witnesses didn't make the cut because they say things that could embarrass one side of the political side. So maybe I'm thinking, you know, extreme political views, which he does have. If you look at some of his Twitter tweets and Facebook, I don't know, but also he's not a firsthand person in the program. He's somebody that allegedly was basically on guard from a craft and saw beings. So I would stick to people who are in the program, and hopefully we hear from them. And once again, I sound like a broken record. I realize that. I am excited that we had the Grusch interview last night, but we're kind of in that holding pattern. I just can tell people, you really need to be patient, because people have patience and then they lose it and they start getting really skeptical and then they become debunkers. I've seen it from a long time ago, people I knew, and I see it now on Twitter, and they're like, what happened to you? They're like, they lost their patience and they're done with it.
I guess everyone has a line, but I mean, you need to have a lot of patience in this subject, I think. And hey, I guess it's not for everyone in the long run. Fair enough.
Yeah. And when was the last time we had Congressman Nancy Mace talking about, you know, everything we want to hear? We want to hear stuff from Gillibrand, stuff from Rubio. We have that Schumer amendment with other people, other senators, Gillibrand, Rubio, Young, Heinrich. This is like unprecedented since I've been in this, since 96. So yeah, it's not as fast as some people would like, but stuff's going on. We did have a question in the debate, Chris Christie, who joked about it and referred to the War of the Worlds in New Jersey, which is where the Martians landed in that movie. But yeah, that sucked. 2007, we had Dennis Kucinich was asked about UFOs during a Democratic debate. So, and they laughed at him back then. He actually talked about it and they laughed at him. So we've come a long way since then, but we still got a long way to go. 2028, Vinny. 5 more years before we hear the juicy stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God, that scares me. It scares me when people do that. Do you think it'll become like more of a conversation in the lead up to the presidential changeover or whatever? Do you think Biden will get a second administration and roll with it? I mean, people think.
I'm skeptical about him getting a second term, but if he hasn't done anything to show us he's gonna even talk about it. He's laughed it off. Supposedly there was another task force. Somebody on Twitter, anonymous, part of the anonymous group, said, remember, in February, they talked about a White House task force, which we haven't heard anything about since then. I don't know what that's all about. So Biden versus, then we have Vivek, and I don't know how he's asking all these crash retrieval programs, which are amazing for a presidential candidate. So I don't know. I don't know if he even has a chance against Trump and DeSantis, but it's nice to see that. I've never, like I said, this is amazing to see members of Congress talk about stuff that only we would talk about. But and I said it earlier, my fear is the Gang of Eight, which is supposed to be read in, the Speaker of the House and the heads of the intel committees. They're supposed to be read into every program they want to be read into. There's no program that if they ask to be read into that they should be kept out of. But apparently they have with this stuff because they don't know about it. But if they are read in, I'm afraid they're going to say, okay, we now have oversight. That's enough.
Yeah.
And we're never going to hear about it. That's my biggest fear. And it's like, at that point, I don't know what we do. Is that when James Fox and the other folks say, okay, here's our contingency plan. Here you go. Here are the interviews. Take that. What are you going to do with this?
That's a good point, actually. I mean, that's all we have, really, I think, unless someone else somewhere is sitting on something else. I mean, it's scary to think about, but I guess we have to kind of cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, I hope James Fox has some really good interviews that would wake up the legacy media, but until he releases them, I don't know. I don't know what he has.
Yeah, that's it.
Jared Moskowitz, I forget which state he's from. He's one of the people who was part of the hearing, Democrat. He told a media outlet that closed door hearings only with members of Congress and other people with security clearance is a possibility. That would suck if that's all we get in the fall. That would be hard to take if we don't get to hear more until next year. You really need to support Congress. You really need to show them that you care about this. And I'm like, I read back on the Apollo program. People didn't care about Apollo, but it happened anyway because they realized this is important. We don't care if the American people don't realize that we're going to do this. I would hope that members of Congress, even if the majority aren't interested in this, realize that it's planet changing, species changing, legacy making for them. Come on. You have to realize if you're talking to the other witnesses, there's something here. There's smoke where there's fire. It's like this fire where there's smoke. Dig into this. And unless they're getting threats. I mean, I was told that staffers were getting intimidated. Wow. One person told me that. Not members of Congress, but maybe they've pushed on to Congress. Because if people have been killed in the past, like we've heard, what's to stop those folks from intimidating members of Congress and saying, just so you know, we're watching your family. So you better not take this too far. And if you're a member of Congress and you have a family, what do you do then? Right.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, I think the staff has actually put in a lot of the legwork for the congressperson or Senate or whoever. I think they really do dig in deep, and a lot of them have the clearances to kind of at least get so far with what they can dig up. So
yeah, and I think that was like they go to the staffers first and the lawyers. At that point, the members of Congress have plausible deniability when they're asked questions. They're like, yeah, we know a little bit about it. They don't go into any detail. But what if, and George Knapp brought it up on Joe Rogan. Tom DeLonge has brought it up. What if they're connected to creating religions and members of Congress have been told that? Like, you're going to destroy religion, just so you know. So if you want to make that public, go ahead. There's your legacy. I don't know. Is that what they're being told? It's like, that's a big responsibility depending on what we're dealing with. So I can understand it. But, if we're in Congress, we're like, yeah, I'm sorry. This sucks, but this has to be out. We've had not a lot of great coverage, but we had a Dave Lieber who writes op-eds for the Dallas News. He's like one of the few who said it is potentially the biggest story in the history of humanity. I'm like, this guy gets it. Right. I would hope everybody would get this. And I think the furthest that Rubio went is he said, this is a little outside of the realm of what we're used to dealing with, which tells you, this is, which gave me a little bit of hope, but he's been quiet lately, but now they're back. So let's see, trying to think what else I had written down. National Archives are making UFO records online, available online, which is great. You don't actually have to go down there now. So that's good. They're not declassifying. They're just making it available online.
Yeah.
the one thing, if we get, and it's government related, but if we do get the Schumer rounds amendment passed, and eminent domain is part of that, that means they can just go in and take whatever they want related to non-human tech and bodies. And I know it's a pipe dream. It's at least in my head to see that play out. Bang on the door and just break it in and like, we're here. And then Schumer just walks in. He's like, give me the craft. I'll take the body too. I mean, I can't see that happening, but it's in the language. And let's see if it gets passed first. We'll know by the end of the year. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
Let's see what the next month brings, and the next couple of months and the end of the year, and then we can talk about it and say, oh my God, I never thought that was going to happen. I hope it's that, and not like, oh my God, can you believe nothing has happened in the last 4 months? So let's see. I'll remain optimistic. I usually am, and we'll see.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. It's always better to be optimistic and just like we said earlier, be patient. So, but listen, Joe, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.